Welcome to Parenthood Bites, the podcast where we explore life as a parent in tech. I'm your host, Chow, and I have over 15 years of experience in tech, and I'm also currently working as a career coach. I'm the proud mother of 3 incredible boys. In each episode, we have an inspiring guest who will share their remarkable story. You'll find their wisdom and insights both relatable and enriching, because after all, we're all in this parenting journey together. So grab your favorite drink, get cozy, and let's dive into today's episode. Hi everyone, welcome to episode 33 of Parenthood Bites. We're here today with Vera Mehta, who is currently in the UK and is a Senior Director of Software Engineering at ClearScore. Hi Vera, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. I'm really excited to be talking to you today.
Awesome. I'm really excited to talk to you as well. How was your weekend? I know it's Monday night over there now.
It is. Weekend was really fun. I got to make a birthday cake for my sister, who sadly has a broken foot, and also put my son into his first pair of shoes to get him walking, which was really, really funny and adorable. He's still finding his feet and balance, but it was a really fun experience to do for the first time.
That's so cute. And I remember those first couple pairs of shoes. They don't really get worn out because they barely walk, right? They look so cute in them.
Yeah, I think he'd probably outgrow them in about 2 weeks. They fit him perfectly, and he was sort of clambering around like 1 foot at a time, almost stomping to an extent. But it was a really nice experience. It was really fun to watch him, and it looked like he was having a good time. But yeah, you're right. They probably won't see the ground very much.
It's perfect for pictures and to look cute.
Yeah, I definitely took a lot of pictures.
What kind of cake did you make? I've heard you were quite the baker in the past.
I used to, I still really, really enjoy baking. And my sister specifically asked for a Victoria sponge, which is a Victoria sandwich. So it's two really kind of spongy cakes. And in the middle, you've got buttercream and homemade preserves, some kind of jam. So I made a seedless like raspberry jam, which was really tasty, really good. And it was nice because it was the first opportunity I've had to bake in a long time as well. So it was good. Had a reason to. I felt more sorry for my sister because she's got a broken foot, so she can't get out of bed.
Yeah, but I'm sure she loved the cake.
She did, yeah. It was demolished.
See, because when I bake cakes, it's like I get the box with the the cake mix, and I add oil, water, eggs, and that's my cake. So this is taking up a few notches.
So that's basically what's in a cake, except that you don't have to do the measuring. And I've seen your cakes. You do what's it called? A funfetti, where it's all colourful. We don't really have that much here, but they look really good. They're still baking. You still got to get it right.
Because they all come together in the powder. All I had to do is dump it in. So how many kids do you have and how old are they?
So I'm lucky enough to have one child, and I didn't really plan for children in life, but we have one, and he is just coming up to 14 months now.
Wow, you're still at the months, meaning he's still little.
He's still
So
little, yeah.
cherish those moments.
I think I really do love the little sounds that he's making, and he's starting to say words and things. So yeah, I will definitely trying to record sound as well as take as many pictures as I can. Change so quickly.
Yeah, as many videos, as many pictures as possible. And then you can show him when he gets older too.
Yeah, he's going to be like, Mom, I'm bored of this. And I'm like, yeah, but you were so cute.
Yeah. They don't really like seeing it, but then they kind of will watch anyways. They're kind of like, oh, that was when I was little. But then because it's them, they'll still watch it.
So I will be coming to you for advice.
Always here, whatever advice I can give, but I don't know how much of it is helpful, but I'm happy to talk.
All of it.
So what brought you to tech?
So I guess a combination of choosing the wrong course at university to begin with and a bit of luck, I think. So I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I started going down the path of architecture. So my dad's background was civil engineering, and he used to take me around essentially to like building sites, and I used to have him out quite a lot in properties and other things, and it felt quite natural. And then when I got to university, I was like, this is definitely something I want to do. I like being creative, I like the technical side of it. And then I realized how long I would have to study for. And you kind of know that whilst there is a benefit to doing that, and doing a diploma and doing a full degree and then a master's or whatever comes after that, I was like, this is 7 years of life, and I really want to get started now. And I think also coming from a place where you spent your entire life up until the age of 18 in education, and I was dyslexic as well, so there was part of academia which I enjoyed, there was part of it which I didn't enjoy so much, and I really wanted to get stuck in. And so I told my dad that I did not want to study architecture anymore, and I changed to computer science because I'd been meddling in a lot of different things, as you do when you're a teenager. You've got access to computers and things. You break them. You find ways to achieve anything, make me play games, all sorts of things. And I really enjoyed that. And I'd started to build websites to help out small businesses or friends, and that was my entry point, I think. And when I left university, I got really lucky because a friend of mine said, "Hey, there's a 3-month position starting as soon as you graduate, or as soon as your term finishes. Are you interested?" And I was like, "Well, what is it?" And at the time, it was like a webmaster role, which was basically keeping the websites of certain, I won't say the department, but the government department up and running. So you do all the networking stuff in the background. You make sure that like all the updates are like published well, that the websites are running, they're performant, all that sort of thing. And I was like, for 3 months, sure, I'll do that. That was the first role really I took seriously.
Nice. So it sounds like you played technology for a bit and then decided to do it for a career.
Yeah.
That was like me being a doctor. Because my mom was like, you should be a doctor. And then I started taking like biology classes and stuff. And then when I was going to college, I was looking at it and I was like, oh my God, I got to be in school for so long.
Yeah.
And then my dad was computer science. So I was like, okay, I'll do computer science instead. A little bit more instant gratification.
Exactly. Yeah. And just sort of more relevant as well in life. So I made that switch. I can't say that my dad was very happy though. He didn't speak to me for a week.
Oh,
I think he was really proud that his daughter was following in his footsteps, and then really disappointed when I didn't follow through on that.
as dads are, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so.
I mean, when I turned to computer science, that's when my dad was like, yeah, he was so proud. you know.
As he should be. I feel like they won, I think. So yeah, it took me a while to get my dad to, well, not to speak to me, that's a bit harsh, but just to be accepting of something that he didn't necessarily understand. So the world of technology is so different from the world of architecture and engineering, and that's all our family kind of knew from his side. So all of his brothers are in a similar field, and everything's very intuitive for them. So to then say I want to learn more about this stuff where I sit at my desk for hours and hours and hours, I don't talk to anyone. It took a while for him to accept that it would be a good career path long term. I got very, very lucky with the first sort of contract that I got straight out of uni, not having any skills or sort of experience in working in an office. And that 3 months allowed me to go and work in different startups, and then eventually move back into the government world to do a lot more.
That's awesome.
Very, very lucky time.
Yeah, that's a great opportunity. So how many years were you in tech before you became a parent?
I think just under 20, which probably tells you what my age is. About that if you include pregnancy as well. So I've had a long time to grow in many different organizations and figure out what life is, what the experience of working is, and then now adding on the experience of having a family.
So pretty established in your career and then stepped into the motherhood journey.
Yeah, and it's really, really interesting because I always thought growing up as a teenager that I would have children at a young age. I say young age, I just sort of mean in my 20s, I guess, because I thought I'd be good at it. I think culturally, part of my sort of background was raised to sort of understand more domestic things rather than sort of technical things. Yeah, I thought I wanted to be a parent at a younger age because I'd be good at it. And as I went through life in my 20s and early 30s, I started to realize even more that I'm good at other stuff, and that as you go through life, you're more and more satisfied with the things that you can do and you've achieved. And it's not that family was never important, it was just that I wasn't with the right person or it wasn't the right time, but I never felt that burning desire to really be a mum immediately.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think like that's how life goes, right? It never really goes as we plan or as we think. I mean, when I was little, I had this one aunt who didn't have kids, and we were really close to her. So all through my childhood, I'm like, I'm never going to have kids. I'm going to be just like her. I'm not going to have kids, and I'm just going to hang out with my nieces and nephews, and that's it. Right. And then when I got married, I was still like, I don't know. And then suddenly I was like, I think I want to have kids.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's just interesting how like your
Mm.
mindset shifts and things change as you grow up.
Yeah, definitely. I do think that if I'd found the partner that I have today earlier on, I might have looked at things slightly differently as well. I don't have any regrets or look backs where I think, I should have done something differently. Everything, like to your point, happens at the right time.
Yeah, for sure. So, what was the parental leave policy like?
So this is kind of interesting because I was working at an organization that went into administration after I found out I was pregnant. So I then had to hunt for a new job while I was pregnant, and I was at the point in pregnancy where you can't really be open about it because you don't know if the pregnancy will be successful. As you get further and further along, the chances of things going well start to improve, and so that was a whole experience which I hope I never have to relive again. It was pretty tough. But when I joined the new company, I was very transparent about it once I'd got quite far into the process. And most UK companies, and I don't know if it's the same in the US, you have to be employed for at least 6 months. With some companies, it's a year. And I was approaching that window where I was falling out of that time period. So you're not entitled to maternity leave. And it was a very, very stressful time. And the company, ClearScore, were fantastic. They were unbelievably supportive. So I told them that I was pregnant before I'd received an offer. I guess you want to be as transparent as possible because this is a company that you want to invest in and you're hoping that they want to invest in you as well. So to start with an untruth didn't feel right to me. So I sat down and explained where I was at and how far along I was. And then I was just like, if I get an offer, brilliant. If I don't, I'll just make some lifestyle changes because it will be too late to try and look for something else. And their policy was one that was around the sort of 6 month mark. So you have to be employed for 6 months in order to get maternity. And maternity is a year of time away from the company with a portion of that period paid. So with this company, it was 6 months paid, and then you move down to sort of statutory pay when you move outside of that. So it goes down to sort of 25%, and then sort of very little when you're closer to the end of that year. And the company offered that to me, and in the contract they said, it doesn't matter when you give birth or what happens, we're investing in people. And that made me feel so sure that this was a company that I wanted to be a part of. Just the sort of kindness around and inclusivity around that, but the people that I spoke to that supported me in that journey. So they were more interested in me as an individual and what I could offer longer term than this short term piece as well. So I encouraged them to change their policy.
That's really awesome that they were able to do that, and they were able to update the policy then afterwards.
Yeah, so they're a very inclusive company. For example, they've just introduced a program that supports women going through menopause as well, because there's so many hormonal changes that can affect, performance at work and other things. So they're very, very supportive of that. So as I was going through this process, they essentially issued me with a contract saying that essentially if the baby arrived any time between then me starting and my sort of respective due date, that they would honour maternity leave. And I don't know many companies that would do that. And in my search, so when I was interviewing at lots of different companies, there was the moment I introduced the idea, or not the idea, the fact that I was pregnant, suddenly the job wouldn't be available anymore. And there was, or they'd slow down the progression through the interview track, or recruiters just wouldn't get back to me. And as much as people say, the kind of macro environment is changing. There's lots of companies that are going through redundancies and other things. Some of them I felt like were just keeping me in the loop because it was a box check, essentially. And you can definitely tell the difference having found a company that I not only was successful with, but they were willing to invest as well.
Yeah, that really shows a lot about how the company is, so it seems like it's a blessing in disguise that you
Yeah,
didn't go through with the other companies, and so then you ended up with the right one.
definitely. Yeah, it certainly feels that way. And I think that there was even one recruiter that I told off. So we had a face-to-face sort of hangout at the time, and I told him exactly what I thought on the day, and I was really proud of myself for doing it.
Yeah, good for you.
These companies walk a fine line. It's really easy to hide the truth because you'll never get the transparency that you'd like, essentially. but you can tell by mannerisms, behaviors, all those sorts of things.
And good for you for doing that, because I think you're not just doing it for you, right? You're doing it for all the other women out there. And
Yeah.
hopefully this recruiter in this company will take that feedback more or less.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope I gave him the shock and that he needed. But yeah, again, it was a bit of a wake up that, pregnant women really don't have any rights.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Especially right now, right? You would think we've progressed enough, but even though a lot of companies say they are, under the hood, they're really not.
Mm.
Like you said, just ghosting you or just taking really long to respond. Those are all signs of they're just not as progressed as they think they are.
No, and it's also they've got targets to achieve, and it doesn't help them do that.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to. Also, I guess from the business perspective, nobody wants to hire somebody that's going to be around for a period of time and then not be available for a period of time after that. So it's all very short term thinking.
Yeah. So, what was it like transitioning back to work after your parental leave?
I was actually quite excited to go back to work. So I took about just under 9 months off. I say off, but I took 9 months away from work with baby. And when I returned to work, it was supposed to be a sort of slow, staggered return, find your feet again, reassociate yourself with people that you spent a number of months with. So it was supposed to be a very kind of slow and stable return, doing a bit of shadowing and some other things. And about a week into that, the company went straight into a major reorganization and remaking of their entire operating model, which was very, very chaotic. So it basically threw me in the deep end. And I think I believed that I had the energy for that as well. So it's like, right, we'll just crack on with things. And because I assumed that I'd have the same level of energy that I did before having a baby. And I realized how quickly I didn't. And part of that is the amount of time that you can spend at work, and not just during the day after you've done like a nursery drop off and then pick up and then you have to do your evening routine. There's several hours in the morning, several hours in the evening that you're just not available for. So I hoped it would have been a little bit more slower paced. Initially, I was excited that it wasn't, and then I think reality sort of kind of kicked in. So it ended up being quite intense, many long days, many long hours, and I don't have any sort of regrets about it or anything, or I don't have any kind of resentment towards the company for it. But some of that was my own choice, of course. It was more just I hadn't figured out what the right balance looked like. So yeah, it was an intense period.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, like going back to work in itself is already a struggle
Yeah.
because, you have this baby that you care for now, which you didn't have before. And there's all these changes in your body after having a
Yeah.
baby. And then having to deal with all that stuff at work. Oh my gosh, that like increments the challenge of it.
Yeah, you're right as well. I'd actually stopped breastfeeding a couple of weeks before I went back to work, and yeah, I think all of the I don't know if they're resetting hormones or what was happening, but there was a lot of that to sort of contend with. And then I just missed hanging out with the little one so much. I was just kind of wondering if he was okay every day for hours, and it would just be something that was lingering in the back of my mind, and just couldn't really escape it. So I just felt such a sense of relief when I picked him up. One, because I probably felt like he was a little bit too young to go into nursery. He wasn't. It was just my mindset at the time. You just always wonder if the people that you put them into care with are going to do the same level of, or have the same standards that you do. So
Yeah, absolutely. Because they're so little, they can't talk, they can't express it to you. So if something were to happen, it's like, how would you know?
yeah. So it was a very, very tricky time. So I think there was a huge undercurrent of emotions that I didn't really feel like I could share or be allowed to sort of surface, especially during that quite intense period at work as well. And in some ways, like I said, some of that work sort of re-energized me and kept me busy, and in other ways, it sort of led to a type of burnout. I think what I didn't realize as well was that, and I've just done it myself earlier as well, I referred to myself as sort of being off work. You're not off work, you're working sometimes many more hours looking after a child than you would do at a day job. But I realized that I hadn't taken any time for myself during that period. So where you're going from having many sleepless nights, which your hormones sort of prepare you for, into this sort of more day rhythm where baby's circadian rhythms have sort of normalized a little bit into night and day. They need so much continuously, and it's not just the work that you're doing physically, it's all of the thinking, it's all of that okay, baby's 6 months old, they're going to start eating food. What do they need to eat? How do they eat? How do they drink water? How much water do they drink? What is the right level of nutrition? When does milk become less nutritious for them? You just have all these ongoing questions. And I'm pretty sure, and you'll tell me this, that this probably never ends, but it's still a huge, huge adjustment.
Of course, you'll always worry about your kid, but then I think the type of worry changes. When they're little, it's a lot of the physical labor,
Yeah.
having to rock them to sleep and do this and do that. And then when they're older, it's less of the physical labor, it's more of the mental, of like being worried about their future, where are they going to go, things like that. So, like you said, it doesn't stop, but it does change a little
Yeah.
bit. And when you don't have that physical exhaustion, it does lighten the load a little
That's
bit.
good to know. It's
At
good to
least in my
know.
experience.
Yeah. Okay. I'll wait for that adjustment. I think honestly, with returning to work, one of the things that sort of knocked me for six was I hadn't really thought about how baby sleep would change, and that there would be more aggressions. So as I was about two months in, he suddenly stopped sleeping through the night, and he would wake up from 12:30 to 4 o'clock in the morning. Like, why are you awake? Why are you this awake? Why will you not go back to sleep? Why does milk not work? And after about 3 weeks of that, I think I was destroyed. So the good thing about going back to work full time was it made my husband much more accountable. So it was like, if I'm up, you're up. And we started to take turns and figure out what that routine looked like for a little while. But it wasn't something that I hadn't considered what the future would hold. In the period of months, I was just like, okay, this feels about right. This works. This is how things will be. So that was a lesson. That was a hard lesson to learn.
But it's very unpredictable with kids. They might sleep well this week and then next week they don't. And then the following week they sleep really well again. And so we just shift, right? As kids shift, we also shift. As they evolve, we also
Yeah,
evolve and kind of go with the flow, right? And those
very much
first few
so.
months is just a blur.
It definitely was.
It's just a blur because you don't really get sleep. You're kind of just reacting to things.
Mm,
It's really hard to plan ahead when they're that young. It's just reacting, 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 and hopefully they sleep through the night at some point.
yeah, fingers crossed. Yeah, I think this is it was a hell of a lesson. And I also think that because I'd been a primary carer for that entire period, my husband hadn't learnt to do a bunch of things. There was a lot that he was willing to do and needed to learn, and all of that energy and effort was always present. But if it was his turn to sort of get up in the night, if he was up with baby, then I was also up. Whereas if I was up with the baby, he was asleep. And that was again was okay, something else needs to change here. But it is evening out. I'd say the more we progress in life, the more he can take on and learn and do. But I think those very very early days still felt very uneven.
Sometimes we got to throw them in the deep end too.
Yeah, yeah,
Force them to, you know.
exactly. Yeah,
Husbands are fast learners. They just got to be forced to learn.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. And sometimes they just need the answer. They just need the answer.
Yeah, exactly. So, you mentioned when you went back to work, you were no longer breastfeeding, but was there a mother's room at work?
There was at the time, and it's a room that you can sort of book. Essentially, it's a very kind of comfortable room with no tech in it or anything. It's low lit room, and it's also a sort of prayer room as well. So there is one available in the office. I didn't use it myself, and I don't know anyone that's used it yet. It's available, yeah. I did check it out, just to be on the safe side as well, because you just never know. I was like, well, I don't know what's going to happen to my body in a couple of weeks, so, or yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's good to just know where it is, it's available, how to use it, things like that. What do you do for childcare?
Baby's in nursery 5 days a week. For the first few months, he was in nursery for 4 days a week. Either me and my husband took annual leave, and it was partly because we didn't know how well he would settle, but he seemed to settle quite well. And either my husband's mum and dad, or my mum would look after him in between. So we had a sort of all hands on deck childcare for a Friday, and then just ramped him up to 5 days a week because he was enjoying it. He's learning a ton. So he's at nursery. So I think the ratio to staff to baby is really, really good. Partly because that's legal, But yeah, he's really settled there, which is nice.
Yeah, that's nice. It's really important when they have enough
Yeah.
adults to take care of the babies for sure. Because we know what it's like to be out and I mean, I know what it's like to be outnumbered.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe you did it 3 times.
I can't believe it either.
I'm in awe. This is why you sound so relaxed and knowledgeable about all these things. You've done it. But I was surprised at how expensive nursery was and how expensive childcare is in general. Trying to get a place in nursery took over a year. I think I applied when he was pregnant, and some of it is naivety. I didn't think I'd sort of have to plan that far ahead in advance. But also choosing one was pretty tough. So where I went and viewed a load, I was just like, you know what, I don't get a good vibe from this place. It's like, what? They've got all these things. I was like, no, this isn't the right place. I just know.
Mother's intuition.
Yeah, that definitely came into play, and I'm glad it did because he's in a really lovely place, and like I said, he's very very settled, but very expensive, more expensive than I thought it would be.
Yeah, it's definitely an eye opener for all of us, like how expensive it is and how hard it is to get into some. When I was pregnant with my first, some people were already on wait lists for it. And I was like,
Mm,
what? The baby's not even here yet. How am I going to go on a wait
exactly.
list? You know, and I'm the type of person that kind of procrastinates on these types of things. And so people were already, they were like, okay, this is the daycare, this is the alternative one. And I was like, oh my God, I hadn't even started looking yet.
No, and yeah, just to understand the different types of nursery and how they run them and all sorts. Yeah, and then I don't know if you have the same thing in the US, but we have to pay to be on a waiting list. So you have to put down a registration fee. I was like, what? This is like absurd.
I don't think we have that, but I've never put them on a wait list yet. I've never gotten my act together to get to that point,
Yeah,
but that sounds wow, that's crazy. So they want to make sure you really want to go there.
yeah, pretty much. They sort of
Wow.
said, oh, there's no places available until the following year when when child's already one, and you're like, how is that possible? And so you pay this like huge registration fee, you slap in all the details, and then you do it for the next nursery just in case, and another one just in case. So you end up paying a fortune just to make sure that he gets into, or just to make sure the child gets into a nursery that you semi-approve of. It was an interesting experience.
It's like you can't wait till they get older and then all of those things go away. At least that was me around, when they were in daycare and stuff. I was like, gosh, I can't wait till they're a little bit older. Because then you don't worry as much
Mm,
too, right? Because you worry about them going to another place and stuff.
definitely.
So, what is your day to day routine like now with your son?
He sort of wakes up any time between 6 and 7:15, and on lucky days it's 7:15, like today. But normally it's around 6, 6:10. One of us will, either me or my husband will look after and get baby ready. So sort out breakfast or milk, or depending on the time, the other one will get ready, and then we'll trade, and we'll drop him off to nursery at about 7:30. And there they'll give him breakfast, and we bomb it, which means we go really fast to the station, to the train station, and I try and get the next train. So we get to the station, we park, get on the train, head into London, then get off the train. I have to get 3 separate tubes to get to my office, which is in South London. And so by about 9ish, just before 9, 10 to 9 sometimes, depending on how lucky I am, I'm then at work. So I do a full day's work, and my husband and I either rotate who's doing pickup. So if I have to do pickup, I need to leave latest at 4:15 to do that journey and return, pick up the car, go and pick up baby, get them home, start doing the evening routine. So, sorting out dinner and all sorts of things, bath time, stories, all that, packing his bag for the next day, all the things that you've got to do. It's just like an epically long to-do list. And then he's in bed by about 7:45 every day. And then go back in line if I've left early for about an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours to catch up on work and close loops and do whatever it is you need to. And then the routine starts again. There are the odd day where if I'm not on pickup, I'll stay in the office till 5:30 or so, and then be ready to be home to sort of give baby dinner or bath or something. So we do rotate that between us, but they are long days, and even then, after that day, I'm probably online for about an hour in the evening. TV in the background, but just making sure that work gets done. And that's quite tough. Fridays is quite a different day, just because there's a little bit more. I think every office in the world is slightly more relaxed on a Friday in general. But again, just making sure that I finish everything that I possibly can. So I'm sort of brutal or ruthless with my priorities during the week now. It's it was a learned habit. It wasn't like always like that. Occasionally just catch up for a couple of hours on the weekend if I need to as well. But yeah, so it's a long routine. If my commute wasn't an hour and a half each way, I think things would be a little bit better. It's also time where you're just like on Slack or you're replying to things. So it feels like work can be pretty relentless.
Yeah, I remember that when my commute used to be really long. And it's like no matter how early I feel like I'm leaving work, when I get home, it's still really late in the day.
Yeah,
Like you said, even if you leave work
yeah,
4:15, you get home, it's probably already 6:30, right? After you pick up the baby, you get home, it's already
yeah,
really late. And so it just feels like where did the time go? And I would try to catch up on work, on Slack, on the train as well. And it's like
yeah,
you still have so much work left and then a long commute and you get home, it's late. It really just takes a lot of time out of
yeah.
you from that long commute.
It does. I think sometimes by Thursday I just feel done with the week. I just feel really, really exhausted. It's pretty kind of standard. And there are the kind of odd weeks where there's a social event at work and like, should I go to this? Should I not go to this? And you want to go to have fun, but then you don't want the
Yep.
pain that you might experience the next day if you have a drink, or it's knowing that your partner's going to ask for the same in return as well. But but yeah, we're starting to figure out, how do we sort of manage that balance a little bit better. It has made me incredibly ruthless with the things that I choose to sort of wrap up and the things that I
Right.
don't, as well.
Yeah.
And as everyone in the working world knows, your to-do list is this constant cycle of things that never ends anyway. So your Monday priority, if it's not sort of done by end of Tuesday, is no longer a priority. You've got another new thing that's come in which is more important, or needs attention. So setting boundaries around leaving was hard, but it was definitely the right thing to do.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I feel like you kind of talked about this a little bit with talking about the ruthless prioritization, but I was wondering, how has your work life changed since you became a parent?
It's definitely more focused. Definitely more focused. And I think where there have been times in the past where I really wanted to do something or believed that it needed more of my input or support or guidance or steering or whatever the right thing is, that has just taken a massive backseat. And setting up boundaries to leave the office, first of all, took a bit of adjusting. There a few kind of like looks or comments, and putting those to bed was something that somebody else advised me to do, and I did, and it made me feel really empowered. I felt like I took back a little bit of power, because you never really know what people think, and it was something that was on my mind. So that was like the first thing, and then I guess everything after that is a question of, does this have the right level of impact? Is this going to enable someone? Does this unblock someone? A bit like my own kind of stand up in my head, essentially. And then everything else can either be delegated or wait, I think. So really, really having those sort of boundaries and just sort of checking them every week. And then that prioritization just means that everything I'm trying to do has the most focus that I can give it. And then whatever's left gets answered on the train on the way home, perhaps on
Right.
Slack, or if it's something that just needs a bit more focused time and peace, then I'll do that at night. So I'll just like, if I need to write a document or I need time to really review something, then it's like, okay, I'll just give myself like 40 minutes in the evening to, have a hot tea or the occasional glass of wine and run through it. But yeah, there's a lot of things that historically I would have cared about or really wanted to invest in that I just can't anymore, because it just leads to burnout. It's just energy that you're spending that in a lot of ways just doesn't have enough value or impact long term. And I think one of the things that maybe you and I both learn is that when you invest too much of yourself, it's detrimental to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you really have to prioritize, really
Mm.
have to just do the most important things. Otherwise, you just can't.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It's been tricky, but it's been the right balance, I think.
And so, what has been your biggest struggle or challenge being a parent in tech?
I think instinctively I probably want to say time, but I don't think it's time. I think it is this sort of notion of like energy spend. So I think as a parent, and you'll definitely tell me if I'm wrong about this, but there's just never enough time. for anything. But it's kind of trying to avoid investing in too many things or trying to get too much done, because it takes you to burn out so quickly. So I think that's definitely been the biggest challenge, is like, how do I avoid this as much as possible? I think some of that is even from your conscious and unconscious thoughts. So there are times in the last sort of 6 months since I've been back at work where I've been fearful about something, and that sort of fear leads to a level of like analysis paralysis, and that might be to do with a work thing, it might be to do with something that I can't figure out, like, why is this baby not sleeping? But it's all this energy spend, and it really determines whether or not you're okay, like long term.
I hear that, because you're not just during the daytime worried about work, and also in the back of your head you're always still worried about your child as well. And then
Yeah,
at night it's like you're worried about your child, you're physically there for your child, but then in the back of your mind you're still thinking about work too. And so it's that constant struggle,
yeah. I
right?
think, and one of those things is like, and I know that you've definitely experienced similar from our previous conversations and things, but when you're mentoring people or supporting them, there's such a cognitive load there that does sort of affect it's not just prioritization, but it's your ability to really get things done well, because you're spending so much time or energy on an individual. And I think one of the lessons that I took away from that was, I don't need to support and mentor everybody that asks for it. And I was lucky enough to get some advice from an amazing woman at work, who actually suggested find other people who are more in the realm of this, person that will actually mentor them closely and invest day to day, as well as some of the sensible things, make sure you're setting goals and other things. But it's a type of energy that you spend and choose to spend that determines some of that success, I think.
That makes a lot of sense. And also, knowing you're someone who wants to give your all to everyone. You want to be there for everyone. You want to comfort them. You want to mentor them. You want to take care of them. But it's like the reality of it is you can't.
Yeah.
You'll risk burnout of yourself. And so I think that's a huge mindset shift.
Yeah. I think some of the how took me a long time to figure out, probably longer than it should have done. Like you say, you want people to be successful, and you want to support where you can, because you can.
It's because you care. You care a lot about everyone. So then it's really hard to pull back from that, deal with the realization of like, I can't support everybody. But the most important thing is you got to support yourself, right? And when you're giving so much to everyone else, you're losing that support for yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. Nailed it, Chow.
That's why we work so well together.
I do miss working with you.
Yeah, me too. But it feels so long ago, even though it's not that long ago. So, what are some things that you struggle with at your son's current age of 14 months?
Oh, that's a really good question. There's like a million things that just come to mind as well. I think one of the things I struggle to do is to figure out. It sounds really funny actually when I say it to myself, but it's to figure out how best to spend my time with him. I'm like, am I doing the right things with him? Should I be like playing with him, or should I be doing like more learning and focus based activities? Or, should I actually leave him to play on his own and get on with some work, or do some baking, or and I think that decision making is really, really tough. Figuring it out as I go, and just sort of winging it, but I find it impossible sometimes to sort of make that decision. If you try and like, Google it, you'll find a million things and a million different answers and a million different perspectives. But I think with him, it's just that decision making of, should we do this thing or should we not? Is he the right age for soft play? Should I take him to soft play? If I take him to soft play, he's going to get sick, and then I'm going to have a sick baby, and he's going to have a snotty nose. And you just go down this like rabbit hole of, is it the right thing for him? Do they have a special area for babies? Is he going to get like stomped on by some larger kid? Like, the brain just it sort of vomits thoughts, and I find that quite a lot with the activities that I choose to do with him or try to choose. So it's the decision making process, and partly because it's so unknown, and it feels like the first time that you're doing something with him. Is it the right thing? I don't know. I think one of the other things is probably just trying to decide what is more appropriate food wise, what is more fun for him. If I say certain words, will he understand them? And yeah, a lot of it's just down to decision making. I'm even struggling to answer that question.
And I think that's something we think about all the time, is like, am I doing the right thing for my kid? But then they're so resilient that it's like a lot of things are the right thing for them.
Mm.
Even now that my kids are older, I still wonder that. It's like, should I be helping them with their homework right now, or should I let them try to figure it out? Should I, when they're playing with someone at playground and you see a bigger kid that seems meaner and you're like, should I step in and just like show
Yeah,
that kid what they're doing, or should I just let my kid deal with it, right? So it's
yeah,
that constant question of like, how much should I intervene? How much should I do? And am I doing the right thing? But I think there's not really a right or wrong. We do the best we can, and that's it.
yeah. I think you're right with that for sure. Also, there are times where he's playing with the dog and he's got a snack in his hand and he's eaten some of it and then he's offered it to the dog and the dog's had some of it and I can see him putting it back in his mouth and I'm like, should I have stopped that? Would I have got there in time? But it's like all these like micro struggles where you're like, it's happened. Should I let that happen
Yeah.
again? Is it good for him to have these like dog germs in a system because that will make him more resilient? I don't know the answer.
Do they play well together?
They do. Lay's at a stage where his hands are he's sort of hitting a little bit more than being gentle, but also he can't quite control when he wants to grab something. So he's got a really good focus between his thumb and his index finger. But when he's like stroking our dog Peanut, he'll gently sort of start with a stroke and then he'll accidentally hit him and then he'll go back to stroking and then he'll accidentally just like grab his fur.
Oh god.
And then so Peanut's really pretty resilient, and he'll take it, and he'll try and dodge Lay or take a step back or not get too close because he's learnt the hard way. But there have been times where Lay has basically grabbed both ears and just like pulled his head down,
Oh my
uh,
god.
and poor Peanut's just let out a little whelp and then gone to hide in another room for a bit. But they play a lot together. Lay's starting to mimic him quite a lot as well. So if Peanut puts a ball in his mouth, Lay will try and put a ball in his mouth. So they're quite
That's
sweet.
so cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very cute.
So they're pretty adorable.
Because Peanut is only a couple of years older, right?
Yeah, yeah. So he's currently he's sort of three, I guess, in human years. I guess he's a sort of teenager in a lot of ways. So he's submissive, which is good because you never want any angst from a dog around a child. But yeah, Lay started to chase him around quite a lot.
That's cute. So, I know this is something we're all working on, but what is your approach to work-life balance? What are some things that work for you?
So I think a good example is probably this week. So I've taken this week away from work or off work, and I've kept Lay at nursery. So I've kept baby at nursery, which means that I've got freedom during the day to exercise, to go have a massage, just to do something for myself. So this feels like a win for the parents in a lot of ways. So I know he's in safe, capable hands. But I think during regular weeks and weekends, it's probably a combination of walking the dog, so definitely outdoors time because baby will also just enjoy being in the pram looking at nature. We've got a sort of carry for him, so we go on sort of hikes in the forest, and he's just in awe of that, and that's really relaxing for everybody. And sometimes he'll fall asleep, but I really find that if it's not baking or cooking either, to decompress. I've actually introduced a little bit of meditation into my life as well. So if there's 10 minutes at the end of the day to do that, that really does help, and it just helps me to switch my brain off before I go to bed, because all of these sort of struggles with decisions and other things that you don't feel like you know enough about just sort of play on your mind continuously. And I think that's been the thing that's helped the most. And in some ways it sort of sounds cliche, but after a few weeks of trying meditation for 10 minutes, there are these moments of just complete peace that you get in your mind. That for me feels like I've had a day off if I manage to achieve that. And I don't meditate every day. It's probably maybe 2 to 3 times a week at the most right now, but it does help me relax an awful lot. And then baking, as you know, is my go-to. It's like the preciseness. It's like the no one else in the kitchen but you, and then you get something really delicious at the end of it if you've paid attention. So yeah, it just allows me to dive in. I would have said a while ago it would have been movies or video games, but I actually find them quite hectic at the moment. Like I struggle to watch anything that's like full of like drama or intent emotion after a hard day as well. It sort of keeps my mind awake more than anything. So it's shifted a bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you use any guides for meditation or any apps or anything or
I've mostly used Headspace for meditation. But I did read a couple of books on mindfulness a while ago. I think I read them during pregnancy. I think some of it just stayed in the back of my mind because I was like, oh, I don't need these yet. It's fine. But there are just a few sort of nuggets around like visualizing things as you kind of like just close your eyes, or sort of a breathing technique as well that just sort of take oxygen and fill your lungs, but it also feels like it's going to the pit of your stomach, so that it does just give you a sense of clarity. And it's probably because you're just breathing properly, but little things like that really do help. And I was quite surprised by that in a lot of ways. I try to not look at my phone, but I do end up just sort of going down like rabbit holes on TikTok or YouTube or whatever, just to get some form of like comedy distraction. So I don't think there's anything out of the ordinary or anything new that I've discovered, but I think the old tricks do work.
Headspace. Okay. I'll have to look that up. I think you've mentioned it to me in the past, but I haven't spent too much time using it. So the last question I like to ask is, what's something you would tell someone who's planning to have kids, or something you wish you knew before you became a parent?
Advice that I would give someone who is planning to have a kid or maybe is pregnant. Everyone prepares you for the things that are really hard. They prepare you for how hard childbirth is, or the things that you might struggle with. Or I guess there's a lot that people remember that becomes tricky when a baby is born. No one prepares you for the joy, and I wish I had been more prepared for that, because as hard as things are, that the difficulty of things never goes away or never changes. But no one prepared me for how amazing it would be to hold a baby in my arms and have that skin to skin contact, or seeing them like walk, seeing them wear their first pair of shoes. It's more joy than I ever expected to have, and it's really hard to sort of quantify, or to help someone realize that. But I would just advise anyone thinking about having a baby, or anyone who's going to have a baby, who's pregnant or expecting a child, to just prepare yourself for that immense joy, because it's overwhelming, and it's incredible in a way that I'm struggling to describe.
Oh.
And what's something I wish I knew before I became a parent? I guess I didn't realize how much strength I'd have from sort of becoming a parent. And I think that if someone said, you'll feel more empowered, or it will do things for your career that you wouldn't normally expect, I would be less worried, because I was very, very worried about how having a baby might impact my career. Or obviously there's people generally worry about, okay, your life experience is going to be different, but I was really worried about how it might impact who I would be at work and what I'd be able to do. And if someone had said to me, having a baby will change your career and the way you are at work for the better, I think I wouldn't have worried so much, and I wouldn't have had so much hesitation, because it's not only helped me with becoming stronger, it's helped me just take a step back and look at things differently. And it's not just because I have a human to look after and care for and worry about. It's, you have to be hard as nails to do this. In a lot of ways, you have to be so many different things to be successful at being a parent. That has given me a lot of strength to follow through on things that I believe in. It's helped me to prioritize. It's helped me to help others, and it's kept me learning continuously in a way that I just wouldn't have expected. I would have thought that this experience would have taken more away from me, and it's given me so much more than I ever thought it could. And I think a lot of parents will resonate with that, perhaps for lots of different reasons. But for me, it would have made the world a difference. I might have even done this sooner.
Yeah, that really does resonate with me, because I think like before having kids, you just don't know, right? You see other people, it's all through what people tell you. All of it, the good, the bad, it's just whatever anyone tells you. And then to actually experience yourself, it's a whole different thing, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's hard to express those in words. And I'll be honest, I'm one of the people that tells you all the bad things when I have kids, because I feel like when I was pregnant, I wasn't prepared for like some of the the rough nights, or the poop coming out of the diaper. I'll say I still wasn't prepared when it happened to me, but then I had wished I had known some of those things.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm like, oh, let me tell you this, let me tell you that, because I just think like the good parts, you will experience that naturally, and those things will be beyond your wildest imagination. But then the bad parts, like I was like, whoa, I wasn't prepared for that. So guilty. I am one of those
no,
people.
but the thing is that there's also so much in that as well, because there are things that you told me, especially post pregnancy, where I was like, oh my god, is this really like what happens? Is this really, you know, how you're treated in a hospital, what they expect, or you know, all these sorts of things. And I'm really really glad that you told me, you gave me some hard truths as well, because I don't know anyone else that would have done that either. So again, this is why we work so well together. We are yin and yang. So those things are incredibly, like I said, they're also incredibly valuable. And I've learned so much from your experiences. There's so much that you've shared with me that has made a difference to what my experience of like motherhood and being a parent is as well. So I do wholeheartedly value all of the hard things. I think some of the joy and some of the other things just create like I guess they give me a sense of security in some ways. Again, there are periods of times, there are these moments, there are these months where anxiety just feels like it's uncontrollable. And you don't even realize like how anxious you might feel about something. And it's funny because actually, when you ask me what is something I'm struggling with, like at the age that my child is now, I've just realised it's whilst it was some of it is decision making, it's like I have these pockets of free time and I have no idea what to do with them. It's a real struggle because if my partner has my husband's taken the baby out for a walk and I've got, oh my god, I've got 45 minutes.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? And I lose it. I don't know what to do with that time. So there's no focus. It doesn't feel like there's enough time to do anything. And I'm like going, I'm wasting this time that I've got, and it's really precious and important, and I can't figure it out. And so it sounds really really daft because a lot of people would just be like, I'm doing this, or I'm going to go out, or I'm going to get a coffee, and none of those things are things that I desperately want to do in that time. I want it to be so fulfilling that I can't think of anything.
I'm the same way. You're just like, oh my gosh, it's so valuable, right? This time. None of the things that come to mind are good enough to use for that time. So you're just kind of figuring it out. And then before you know it, they're home and you're like, oh my gosh,
exactly.
What have I done?
Gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, should have just gone for a coffee. Should have just walked out. Should have just sat in front of the TV or whatever. And it's, yeah, and then the moment's gone. But yeah, that is a real comedy struggle.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Thank you, Vera, for sharing your story with us today and sharing your experiences. And it was really nice to hear about your journey. So thank you.
No, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure talking to you. I had a really, really lovely time.
Me as well. And I think, you know, when I first told you I was going to do a podcast, we were already thinking about this episode, right? Like,
yeah,
talking about it. And it's, you know, I'm glad we finally had a chance to talk and to hear your story.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for offering me this time as well.
Take care. Thank you so much for joining us today on Parenthood Bites. We hope you found our episode informative and entertaining. If you're a parent in the tech world or know someone who is, we'd love to hear from you. Please reach out to us at chow@parenthoodbites.co, and we'll be thrilled to add your experiences to our interviews. That's chow, CHIAO, @parenthoodbites.co. And to our potential sponsors out there, if you're a business or know of one that would like to support and partner with our podcast, please don't hesitate to get in touch. You can also reach us at chow@parenthoodbites.co. Thank you once again for tuning in, and we wish you a fantastic rest of your week. Until next time, take care and stay curious.